Facts don't care about your feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings. These are facts.
The Supreme Court ruled that about half of the land of Oklahoma is Native American land. Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote in the opinion, quote, "Today we are asked whether the land these treaties promised remains an Indian reservation for purposes of federal criminal law. Because Congress has not said otherwise, we hold the government to its word," end quote.
Give me a hell yeah!
The Muscogee Creek Nation released a statement that said, quote, "The Supreme Court today kept the United States' sacred promise to the Muscogee Creek Nation of a protected reservation. Today's decision will allow the nation to honor our ancestors by maintaining our established sovereignty and territorial boundaries."
Pay the court a fine or serve your sentence.
The mayor of Seoul, Park Won-soon, spoke at a news conference on July 8th about his vision to create jobs and fight climate change in a post-pandemic world, part of his broader, socially conscious campaign that also called for building a city that was more innovative and safer for women. The same day, one of his secretaries accused him of sexual harassment. She said the mayor made unwanted physical contact and sent sexually suggestive, dehumanizing texts to her on the encrypted messaging service Telegram, usually late at night. The next day, Mayor Park called in sick. At his desk in the mayor's house, he wrote a note to his family asking them to cremate his body and scatter the ashes around the graves of his parents. The note said, quote, "I'm sorry to everyone, and I thank everyone who has been with me in my life. I remain always sorry to my family, to whom I've only brought pain. Goodbye, everyone," end quote.
Bye-bye, bitches!
Hours later, the mayor was found dead, presumably by suicide, in the mountainside surrounding Seoul.
We got enough problems with South Korea with trade.
Both the Brazilian president Jair Bolsonaro and Bolivian coup government president Jeanine Anez have tested positive for coronavirus. Thailand approved a draft bill that would give same-sex unions many of the same benefits as those of heterosexual marriages. The bill avoids the term marriage, but allows for the legal registration of same-sex partnerships. The bill still needs to be passed by Parliament to become law, but social activists say that the biggest hurdle was approval by Thailand's cabinet, which is a stronghold of retired military generals and tradition-bound political elders.
When I was in the 3rd grade, I thought that I was gay, because I could draw.
I also want to point out that there's been really big protests going on in Thailand. There was one, so I'm recording this Sunday, it'll probably go up Wednesday. Last night, there was a bunch of big protests there. I don't have anything really to say about it. I'm not prepared to talk about it, but that's worth looking into if you're curious about Thai politics right now. The next story: a bus driver in France was beaten up by passengers who refused to wear mandatory face masks. The attack left the bus driver partially brain dead, and the family agreed to end life support. 4 men were arrested and detained for the attack.
Fucking assholes!
An explosion was heard in western Tehran, and electric power was cut in the suburbs surrounding the blast. It was the 3rd reported explosion in Iran in 3 weeks. all 3 reported explosions happened between midnight and 3 a.m. I will add, however, that recent reporting suggests this may not have even happened, this explosion. So don't take my word on it. There's either a slew of explosions going on at military, nuclear, and electric power plants in Iran, or there's misreporting, or there's maybe like one, I don't even know. I don't know what to think of this. I'm just saying what's reported, but it may not actually have happened. But here's what the actual reporting says, at least. The first 2 explosions occurred at key military bases and nuclear facilities. Iran hasn't disclosed the results of its investigation into the explosion. However, a member of the IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, said that explosives were used, and a Middle Eastern intelligence official, I don't know who that is, and I included this for information, but as you may know, I am extremely dubious when anything is attributed to an intelligence official. But a Middle Eastern intelligence official claimed Israel was responsible for one of the attacks, the one at the nuclear complex. If the show wasn't going to take a hiatus, then I would definitely follow up on this next episode. If it becomes bigger news, I will definitely talk a lot about this when I return from hiatus. But there's just a ton of explosions and or disinformation about explosions coming from Iran. So I don't know what to think of that.
Bomb armed.
Dozens of U.S. Marines at 2 bases on the southern Japanese island of Okinawa have been infected with the coronavirus in what is feared to be a massive outbreak. The governor of Okinawa, Denny Tamaki, said, quote, "Okinawans are shocked by what we were told by the U.S. military. We now have strong doubts that the U.S. military has taken adequate disease prevention measures," end quote.
My bum is on the cheese! Bum is on the cheese! If I get lucky, I'll get a disease!
Tamaki demanded transparency in the latest development and said he planned to request talks between the U.S. military and Okinawan officials. He said Okinawan officials also asked the Japanese government to demand that the U.S. provide details, including the number of cases, and step up preventive measures on the base. Governor Tanaki, like the majority of Okinawans, were already long opposed to U.S. military occupation of their land due to, noise pollution and, of course, the high crime rates that Americans are known to export. One detail I'll add about this, I like to bring this up a lot because it's funny and it really paints a different picture of what Americans think about American troops. When I was in college, I studied abroad in Seoul, South Korea, at a university called Yonsei University. It's a really prestigious school in Korea. I'm very lucky to have studied there. I definitely wouldn't have been able to if it wasn't an exchange student for like a truncated term. Because I wasn't, like, the best student. It's like an Ivy League school for Korea.
I graduated from anger management the same way I graduated from Cornell.
Anyway, that's besides the point. When I was doing the study abroad orientation, they emphasized a few things to us that were very peculiar. They were like, especially if you're white, and American, especially if you're white, you will be perceived as an American. If you are a white American, they said, try to make yourself seem like an English teacher. because people will either assume you're an English teacher or you're U.S. military. If you're an English teacher, they won't care. If you're military, people might, say something like, Yankee, go home. Or they might, get aggressive at you. And that was, maybe not shocking. It wasn't shocking at all, although I was young and naive. But it's just like, whoa, they're just straight up telling us, please don't act like U.S. military or bad things might happen to you. And I can't blame them, honestly. Especially with shit like this. This is one of the biggest outbreaks in Japan because of the stupid freaking military. Currently, the U.S. military plans to move one of their Air Force bases to a less populated part of Okinawa. And Okinawans heavily oppose this. Because, you'd think, they're moving away from civilization, they'll move it to another part of the island. The issue is, it would further spread the military throughout the prefecture even more. It's like a bacteria spreading. And Okinawans want the U.S. military more equally distributed throughout Japan, not just in Okinawa. So, that's kind of what's going on there. I don't know. The U.S. military really makes itself look like crap. Let's leave it at that, shall we? Yankee, go home. Sudan is in a transitional state after their former president, Omar al-Bashir, was deposed in 2019 after 30 years of rule. Now, Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok has replaced several ministers in response to widespread protests. Following these government shakeups, several laws have been changed in Sudan. PM Abdallah Hamdok is a technocrat and generally liberal and the head of government. However, the head of state is still a temporary council, which includes several military leaders. So there's still a conflict within the government. But in the aftermath of the shakeups, the government criminalized female genital mutilation. They also legalized alcohol for non-Muslims and got rid of laws that made leaving Islam potentially punishable by death. So good for them.
Oh, good for you.
Twitter shares surged nearly 12% after the company posted a job listing saying that it is building a subscription platform. The job listing said, quote, "This is a first for Twitter. Griffin is a team of web engineers who are closely collaborating with the payments team and the Twitter.com team," end quote. Then Twitter stocks took a big drop after multiple large Twitter accounts were hacked by Bitcoin people before ultimately kind of bouncing back. So we'll see what Twitter's new subscription service is. I'm very skeptical about it, and I definitely won't pay for Twitter. I'll have to find somewhere new on the internet to spend a lot of my time, but I will not be paying for Twitter.
Large Twitter followings.
And that about wraps it up. This was the Facts and Logic Report.
Facts don't care about your feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings.